Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Business arising from the minutes. Nothing. Okay, on to 4A, Bryce Ferguson discretionary use, page 7.
Note in the minutes that I'm abstaining, removing myself for this.
Yep.
The correct procedure to leave or?
Yes, I can come get you when we're ready. Thanks, Bryce.
Yeah. If we want to have discussion with you. Yeah. Okay. Who takes it? Sam?
Yeah. So the purpose of this report is for the MPC to consider an application for a secondary suite within a residential district from Bryce and Nisa Ferguson on Lot 9, Block 1, Plan 0929532 at 2301 Pioneer Drive Southwest. I've given you all the regulations for secondary suites. So they had their home built in 2016 and left the basement unfinished until now, and they wish to create a secondary suite. And we conducted a plan review, which I have attached for your review yourself. The location is in the basement of the existing dwelling, and so as such is considered a secondary suite attached below grade. Access to grade is through the garage. You can see on the drawings. That you drew an arrow through the garage down the stairs on. Let me see what page this was. Yes, on 21. And then it just goes down the hallway to the door that he will be putting in for the suite. And so as such, it complies with the regulations with respect to access. The proposed suite is inside a developed basement of an existing dwelling, and so the setbacks are not impacted. The area of the suite, the total area of the house is 4,400 square feet, and 40% of that is 1,760 square feet. And as the combined area is greater than 90 meters squared, the suite must be less than the 90 meters squared. Taking the area to be developed, the total area of the suite itself is 67.26 meters squared, and so then it complies with the regulations. Currently, the site can accommodate 4 vehicles on the front driveway and 3 in the attached garage, and he has indicated that 1 parking stall on the driveway will be dedicated to the suite. And so it complies with parking. The amenity area, he has indicated will be in the rear yard in the form of a grassed rear yard. And so that complies with amenity area. Safety codes compliance. A condition of the development permit, if approved, will be the submission of all safety codes permits and the final inspection report. And these will be required before the suite can be occupied and before the development deposit is refunded. As the proposed secondary suite meets all of the regulations established in the land use bylaw, the applicant lives in the R1C, which has large lots that are quite separate from each other. And so the planning department feels the suite should not have any negative impact on the neighboring properties and that the use fits well with the area. Finally, the development of different housing options that are considered more affordable in nature is supported by the municipal development plan. And as such, the planning department has no concerns with this application and recommends that the MPC approves the development of the secondary suite in the basement of the existing detached dwelling.
For the MPC that if approved, then we notify the adjacent landowners. So within 200 meter radius of the subject property, we'll notify those landowners that there's been a decision of the MPC to approve the secondary suite, and then they have the option to appeal if they so choose.
So, go ahead.
So for the safety codes, so he has to have, does he have to have his own entrance? He has to have parking. And what about its own heating source? Is that?
Yes, it's its own HVAC system and everything else. So he'll when he applies for his building permit for the secondary suite, all of that will be outlined.
Condition, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so I've got I've got absolutely no concerns with them developing a suite in the basement. My concern is that throughout all of the bylaw, it keeps talking about a separate entrance. My perception of a separate entrance is such that it's not through the garage, through a common part of the garage, of the basement, and then into the suite. So is there something that you guys can tell me about how you guys came to the decision that this is actually a separate entrance?
Well, it's not the same entrance that's being used for the house. And to be honest with you, I think our land use bylaw is a little outdated with respect to that section. The building code requires a separate and direct access or an access, and I'm not even sure how they word it anymore. But it's a lot less lenient than the way we're interpreting the bylaw. So I think that section of the bylaw needs a little bit of work. We need to go back and talk to the safety codes officer and find out, maybe change the wording or maybe take it out completely. Because the reality is the building code will be the authority that overrides us anyway when it comes to what they're going to require in terms of a separate access to that suite. So I really think our section is a little bit behind the times
I've
in
seen
terms of
other
what they're
ones-
going to approve as a separate access to that building.
I've seen other ones similar, like
Yep.
there's a front and a back door to the actual home, and the tenants use the back door and the owners use the front door.
Yeah, and I've
And
seen
that's
it
the only
like
access.
with apartments some of that, we used to have this condition saying that there had to be a direct outside access.
Yeah.
And even that's not correct anymore. They allow them, as long as there's it spills into a hallway, that's deemed acceptable under the building code. And then there's other things that go with it, whether there's a sprinkler system or a hallway is fire rated and all these other requirements. I dealt with that when I was working with Bruce Allery on those apartments above the brick. So I think personally that our section needs a little work. It's a little outdated. And that if we rely on the building permit and the inspection by safety codes, that they'll deal with that access issue the way it should be.
Yeah,
with
because
respect to the
I'm
building code.
taking it that the garage should never be the one access into a living area.
Yeah, and that might be fine under the building code. I don't know. And it
But-
might not be.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it looks like they do have access to the main living area upstairs. So that being said, the safety codes may say in the event of an emergency, they do have access to the exterior of the house through the main house. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know, but it's, to me right now, it doesn't look like it's, according to the land use bylaw, it's not reading that he has direct access to the outside, to the exterior of the house. Because I'm looking at it that they have to go through the garage to get outside.
So we to assume that the access to the upstairs portion, like through the, what is this, meeting room, den and storage area,
That's all a hallway.
would that be open? Because if it's a locked door, nobody can get up.
It looks like it's a common area, so when they get downstairs into the basement, they're actually going downstairs into an area that's affiliated with the main use of the house.
Yeah.
Then they go down a hallway and then into the suite.
Yeah, and so there's access to the garage, but if you have a look at this, it looks like the stairwell downstairs is just adjacent to basically the access from the garage to it. Small.
Yeah, and I don't know if this meets the definition of direct access or not.
Yeah,
Like,
so, and I've got no problem with them wanting to develop a suite, but we could approve it and then safety codes could come back and say, no, you need to punch out an exterior wall and get access that way, right?
yeah, which is, the reality is the building code overrides us anyway. So if there's more requirements that he needs to make, like we'll only stipulate the use of the land, he may have to put in a separate HVAC system. I suspect he's going to have to.
Yeah.
So there's going to be additional requirements to meet the building code anyway. So
Yeah.
I wasn't overly concerned. I do think we need to work that section through, and probably a conversation with a building codes inspector
Yeah,
to
because
beef that up a little bit would help, but I do know they're required to get that permit, they're required to get that inspection, so when they encounter it, they're gonna have to make it comply.
Yeah, and this discussion with safety codes, I think my concern is more of how do they get out? What type of access do they have to get out of the house in the event of an emergency? The garage being the only access out doesn't sit well with me, but because there is another set of stairs that goes up into the main part of the house,
It might be fine.
it might be fine, so. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it's,
Yeah, no, fair enough, and I think it's an opportunity for us to sort of go back and beef up the regulation. The only reason I'm not concerned again is because they're going to have to draw those permits and get those inspections and then
Yeah.
have to comply.
And we get that yay or nay from building codes before we issue the development permit, right? So.
No, we'll issue our development permit. It's
just don't-
irrespective of,
Oh, okay.
yeah. We have to, we do our approval first because they're of the same opinion. What's the heck's the point of them establishing their criteria if we're not going to approve the use anyway?
Yeah.
Right? Whereas for us, we can approve the use, but there's a whole other set of criteria they have to meet the Alberta Building Code.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I could have looked at it with blinders on and said, there is absolutely no access to get outside anywhere. But I'm looking at it and the option is that if they had to, they could go through the main part of the house to get outside. So hopefully safety codes will take that into account when they review his plans and his application, so.
Well, we'll also look at a little bit of tweaking
Yeah,
to bring those regulations up to current.
yeah, if this isn't the only house that's maybe could be considering a secondary suite. If there are other places in town,
We're going to run into it again.
we're going to run into it again.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
And the same goes for the fire retardant walls, et cetera. I imagine that's all safety code then?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So is this a raised,
Is it a which?
is it a raised house? Like are the windows
it
fairly
looks
large?
like, yeah, it looks like it is. He's only like 8 steps down from the garage into the basement floor.
It's a bi-level or?
It's a,
It's just
Considered
raised
bungalow.
out of the ground. Yeah,
Or a raised bungalow?
yeah. The garage is sitting halfway between the first and the second floor.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so he's like 7, 8 steps into the basement and then he's 7, 8 steps up to I think a closet and then through hopefully through a fire door into the main part of the house. So. Okay. Can I get a motion? Julie? Any more discussion? No, call the question. Those in favor? Carried.
Sure. Thank you, Audrey. Oh, you might need, it's okay.
You need a key.
oh, if you knock on the door, he'll open it. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, because it can be open from the other side, just not this
At the
side.
door.
Hello?
So Bryce, the motion was carried.
Okay.
And Lori will be having some discussion with safety codes. We did have some discussion about the exits out of the house, the access.
Okay.
And
Use bylaw stipulates there needs to be direct access, but that's
Yeah.
not very clear. Like, does direct mean
Yeah,
right there into the suite, or does it mean down a hallway into the suite, or what does that mean?
yeah, and I didn't look at the land use bylaw when I had originally looked at my application. I looked at the building codes.
Yeah.
And it's not entirely clear, so I wanted to have that
Yeah.
discussion with them.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing the same, because
Yeah.
we may need, we're probably gonna update our regs
Yeah.
in the bylaw, just so they're a little more consistent with the code.
we think that the way the land use bylaw is worded,
Yeah,
it just talks direct access right outside.
yeah,
Whereas yours is you come in through the garage, you go downstairs into a common area, and then the suite's at the back.
Yeah.
And my concern was in the event of an emergency, they're not able to exit directly outside, and exiting through the garage is, for the most part, not a good idea, but they may have access to the main part of the house through that stairwell. So that could be something that safety codes could consider when they're talking about how people are able to exit the house.
Okay, yeah, I figured I would apply here because I know they won't issue any permits unless I have this one first.
Yeah,
So-
and we did have some discussion that, you know, if your house, your scenario, you guys are applying, we may end up with more people in Slave Lake who don't have direct access outside, but would like a secondary suite. So Lori said, if you're applying with that scenario, there could be others that could be
Yep.
coming to apply. So we need to do some work on it.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Thank you.
At least one house in the southeast that was built after the fire that there is only access through the garage to the suite downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things there. They may not have gotten a permit because we have a boatload of secondary suites in the community that haven't been ever issued a development permit. However, that said, there was probably about 10
Yeah.
or 11
We
that did get a development permit and building permits and inspections. So I don't know which one that falls under, but we'll get clarity
Yeah.
and make the requisite changes to the land use bylaw.
Yeah, because we lost a lot of the unregistered suites during fire.
We did lose quite a few. Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
I know there was one house that I designed where they had the entrance, well, they had the stairwell in the garage, but it was all fire rated. So they had an entrance into the garage, into the basement from there. Plus they had an entrance from the outside.
Okay.
So the whole thing was completely fire rated. If they built it like that, I don't know.
Right.
So. Okay, on to 4B, Tanner Muellum, page 28.
Okay, so the purpose of this report is for the MPC to consider an application for a type B home-based business, which is musical instrument lessons within the R1 district. The applicant and the owner is Tanner Muellum of Lot 6, Block 17, Plan 2497 NY at 720 4th Avenue Northeast. I've given you the regulations in the land use bylaw for a type B home-based business. Again, this is another one that once, if it's approved, we will notify adjacent property owners in writing, and they'll have a right to appeal if they so choose. We also bring this application back after 6 months, and so the MPC can consider it for permanent approval. So the planning department has reviewed the application. The applicant wishes to operate a musical instrument lesson business, i.e. School of Rock, Slave Lake, in his home. Lessons will be provided for drums, guitars, amplifiers, and computers. He will utilize a detached garage where the equipment will be stored and set up. He's indicated that he feels he'll have clients arrive one at a time, and he anticipates about 3 clients a day. There is also a secondary suite in the dwelling, and as such, the tenants have 2 vehicles that rent that suite. The property has 2 driveways, a front driveway that can facilitate parking for 3 or 4 vehicles, and then a rear driveway that's accessed from the rear lane that goes to the detached garage, and that can facilitate parking for at least 2 vehicles. So the site can handle between 5 and 6 vehicles. In accordance with the land use bylaw, 2 parking stalls are dedicated for the suite and 2 for the detached dwelling, leaving between 1 and 2 additional parking stalls on the property. So it does meet the requirements with respect to parking for the home-based business. The applicant will be the only person employed by the business and working on site. Days of operation will be Monday to Friday. However, the operation hours haven't been included. There are no other home-based businesses operating on the site. The proposed home-based business meets with the regulations of the land use bylaw and meets with the policy statements in the MDP with respect to growing and diversifying the business community. The applicant has not included hours of operation for the business. However, if the proposed approval contains two conditions that speak to potential nuisances. So condition 14 speaks to noise and issues that may be nuisance factors that may be apparent with the business. And that condition number 16 speaks to the quiet hours. Further, the application as part of the normal process will be reviewed again after 6 months to determine if permanent approval will be granted. And that would be dependent on if we're receiving any concerns with the operation of that business over time. So based on all that, we're recommending the MPC approve this type B home-based business. Questions?
Bryce?
To be clear, if it turns out, I mean, I don't anticipate there would be issues, but if the use just was not appropriate and there was tons of complaints before that 6 months, the development authority can pull it, right?
Yep, they can revoke the permit, yes.
Well, hopefully he's got good soundproofing in the garage. So, okay, I'll make that motion. Is there any more discussion? No, call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Land use bylaw. No amendments going on. Proposed subdivisions, nothing. Other business, building value report.
Squeaking up there.
Yeah, it's looking a little better than last year.
What got issued?
3 house permits,
Oh.
right?
2 house and 1 mobile home.
Or one mobile, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Levels, still quite low. Okay, can I get a motion to adopt the building value report as information? Bryce,
Motion.
call the question. Those in favor? Development concerns? Nothing? Next meeting, November 2nd. And adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.